We're going to talk about a subject that's been talked about for many decades in Saginaw, and that is the possible and actually ongoing restoration of the Potter Street Station and what the future may hold. That and a couple other projects going on, too. We have a couple of guests in studio to do that with us. First of all, she is with the Preservation Group, and she is Denise Meyer. Good morning, Denise.
Good morning.
Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
And also with us this morning is a guy I would hate to try and keep up with. He's got more things in the fire than I don't know. But his name is Alex Mixner. And Alex, good morning to you.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
So we'll start with Potter Street because that's an ongoing discussion in this area for many, many years, since I've been here anyway. Where are we? First of all, Denise, let's start with the ownership of Potter Street Station and how it got to where it is now.
Well, it was purchased in 1988. We actually got the deed in 1990. And
goes back that far, huh?
Yes, 88. And a year later, in April 16th of 1991 is when the fire was, the arson fire that destroyed the whole third floor, basically.
Took out the third floor, but yet the building stood.
The building stood, and according to the feasibility study that STARS did, it's actually in better shape than they expected.
Pretty amazing.
Definitely. Built well back then.
So we have a building. It had lots of holes. Where is that building right now in terms of its physical condition?
I'm actually really happy to report there's no holes left.
I heard you'd done the roof, right?
Yeah, so we've been, over a year now, we've been trying to figure out how to, if you have a $100,000 project like that roof, how do you get that done when you don't have $100,000?
That's a good question. I'd like to hear the answer to that.
So we really carefully broke it down into just all the pieces of, what we have is not necessarily the roof of the building. It's kind of a giant umbrella. So it's a big overhang that they built just on the inside of the walls. So that roof is not the roof to the building. It's just a way of keeping the water out. That's made of three things. You've got the OSB, you've got underlayment, you got shingles. You lose the shingles and you start to lose the underlayment, and then the OSB starts to rot. And that happened over the course of about 20 years.
I was going to say, that's a long time.
Yeah, pretty much most of my life, that building has had a roof that's just been slowly degrading. And so we were looking at it, and we were also talking, the engineers who actually did the feasibility study, and we said, what can we do, what should we do? And the overwhelming consensus was that we need the water to stop coming in somehow. And we explored so many different, ways to do that. Some were crazy, some were completely unfeasible, and somehow we ended up still doing something crazy that worked, which was just figuring out how to get the OSB, how to get the underlayment, and how to get the shingles, and then we'll go up there and we'll install it ourselves.
So did you build a roof under the old roof?
The old roof wasn't there,
basically. It wasn't even there.
Yeah, so anywhere that there was rot, we just came up with pry bars and we just started pulling it off. And we ended up exposing, I'd say probably about a third of the roof was just completely wide open at one point. And then using the little money that we had from people donating money, doing silent auctions and doing small fundraisers, we were able to, for just around $4,000, get all of the materials we needed. So we went through.
Wow, that's big from 100. I mean,
yeah. And it really makes you wonder how much of that is overhead. And as a volunteer, I'm starting to think that I'm in the wrong business. But there was a feeling of, well, if this is all it's made of, then what's keeping us from just going up there? And I think it was about 120 sheets of OSB we went through. And we just 3 at a time because we didn't have the equipment. We had a lift that, if it wasn't for groups like McAllister, we wouldn't have really been able to go up there.
How much did you get in kind?
We got about, I think it was around $18,000 of just in-kind services, of just here's the lift for a month, and we're not even going to ask about it. And then after about a couple, I think it was 2 different times we did that, then we started to rent at like half rate. So we only spent about $2,000 on lift rentals, about $3,000 on lift rentals.
And you could not have done it without them.
Absolutely not. No, it was it was a miracle because of the fact that we needed to get up there. We didn't know how to get up there, but we also needed to get up there with 120 sheets of OSB.
And just so everybody understands, when we say up there, you can put the lift on the ground floor.
Yep.
And lift straight up because there's no floors.
Yeah, we needed a boom lift actually. So we had to go up and over a little bit too. So we were going up there. We found out that the load limit between 2 people and 3 sheets of OSB, that's about what we could do without it yelling at us, and saying this is too much weight. And then we just kept going up and down and up and down. And we put in about I think it was around 200 hours each with 2 other people, me and 2 other people who did 90% of the work.
So, Denise, if we went into the Potter Street station right now, through any door, we're standing inside the building. Describe it. What does it look like?
Well, it depends on where you're at in the building.
Okay, well, let's walk through it.
Okay, so on the west end is a baggage room that is in pretty good shape. And then next to that is the ladies' waiting room, which is beautiful. It does show bubbles in the varnish on the wall from the heat from the fire.
But if that's all, I mean, that's pretty spectacular in itself.
It's in pretty good shape, has a beautiful fireplace. My favorite room in the building, actually. Does have a couple holes in the floor. If you go on beyond that is the men's waiting room, which is quite bad. And then in the center of the station where the fire was started. And then after that, there's what was a restaurant at one point in time and became a coffin business during World War II. Fred Frober?
Yeah.
Yeah. Frober Manning is still in the area, I believe. And then after that is another baggage room. There were offices upstairs, a lot of offices and whatever. So.
The upstairs are gone, though, right? For the most part.
Pretty much, yes. But each end, like I said, each end of the building is in pretty good shape because the fire was started in the center.
And it's a classic. I mean, that building was built in 1881, if I remember right.
Yes.
So it was built pretty solid, wasn't it? A lot of those old stations were.
Yeah, I would argue more solid than your average building because this was, you've got these massive beams going through that are true 2x14s that are all, like they're all married together in these giant cast iron columns too, holding everything up.
Yeah.
So this thing was able to take a pretty severe beating and survive.
I'm going to be in a station like that coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm going to spend a little bit of time at the Portland station, Oregon Union Station.
Mm-hmm.
And it's along that design line and everything, and it's old.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the city is trying to sell it because Amtrak didn't want to buy it. So
Yeah, we're coming full circle with these depots, too, where we lost use because of the major decline in rail. So we didn't really have the use for the passenger rail, and about 10 years after they closed down the rail, we're looking at putting a highway about 3 blocks away. So this change made it so everyone said, why would we need an old train station? But a lot of really progressive cities that are looking at this and saying,
the rail's coming back.
What do we do with these depots? Yeah. And, in some places it is coming back. That might be a while for us, but
it's going to be a while, but
yeah,
there is discussion. Now, the initial discussion was rail service that bypassed Saginaw and went more to the middle of the state and up.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's been talked about. Then it was talk, how about service from Bay City to Detroit?
Yeah.
I don't know that it's out of the question, but it is for now. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, if it is, for now, you look at the last, almost 100 years of how we've treated these types of buildings, and just because we don't have the use right now doesn't mean that we never will.
Well,
and having the building is kind of the core of our organization, is making sure it's there.
What Ford did with the Central Station in Detroit is going to be a marquee kind of place.
Yeah, I got a walkthrough of that actually last year, and it's nothing short of a miracle of what they pulled off.
Now they're talking about putting rail back in from there.
Yes.
There's a story today about rail from Detroit to Windsor to Toronto coming back.
Yeah.
So who knows? I mean, it'd
be wonderful.
Yeah, and sometimes if you fully restored the Potter Street station, I suspect that would also have impact on the neighborhood and what else went in there. And we'll talk more about that. I got to take a break, and we'll come back with our guests as we talk about the Potter Street station in Saginaw and its possible restoration, probable restoration. It's ongoing. Let me see if I can give away some money. Yeah, but Chance,
Within that area.
well, here's my vision. Maybe a pipe dream, but it's a vision. In traveling around the country, as I have quite a bit, there are cultural pockets where they have these, for lack of a better term, boutique villages.
Mm-hmm.
You have different kinds of little stores and boutiques in those villages. And I really could see the Potter Street Station in its, rebirth as sort of the anchor of a boutique village, which becomes a tourist attraction.
Yes.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Be kind of a little gaslight district.
Yeah, exactly. And then around it, you can also build housing, because you're right about housing. We talk all the time. Corning is looking for 1,500 employees. They really have found about 1,400 of them already. Hemlock Semiconductor is looking for a couple of hundred. SK Soltron and Bay City is looking for a couple of hundred, and many other businesses are looking. Fine, where are you going to house them? Because the cost, as you well know, the cost of construction today at $300 a square.
Yeah.
A starter home that used to cost $125,000 or $150,000 now is $450,000. That's not a starter in my world.
And that's probably pre-tariff too.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So it would be great to have a neighborhood spring up
Yeah.
around an anchor like that.
And there's actually a lot of things that people really don't realize about, just the broader city of Saginaw too, which is that there's kind of an expectation that no one wants to live there, but we have a housing shortage already. Every housing study that they do, they come up with the same answer. If we don't even have the adequate housing stock for people who live here right now. So there are people who I know personally who want a house, and we've been tearing down these houses that foreclosed for, like $1,200. And they just end up in this pipeline of being restricted because of this particular area within the green zone.
But you also have to realize that some of that destruction of those old homes is for the betterment of the community because of the fire potentials and the arsons that take place in those abandoned properties.
Oh, definitely when they're vacant and abandoned, for sure. But most of
that's
the
what
vacancies,
I'm talking about.
Yeah, definitely. But we don't really see too many opportunities for people to be able to actually purchase a home that they are renting. And so you have these landlords and this very long history of people who own houses who either have a big idea that they're going to do someday, or they rent it until it's not even livable anymore, and then they walk away from it. So you have these issues that really the residents don't have much say over. But
they also
had
don't have a horse in the race, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
They don't have the pride of ownership.
Well, I would actually argue the opposite. There are pockets throughout the whole neighborhood, actually, where there are, you can tell who owns their home because of how well maintained they are.
Well, that fits my argument, though.
Right.
Pride of ownership gives you that desire to make sure you maintain your property.
Yeah, definitely. And if you are renting, even as someone who has rented a space in the past, there are improvements you want to make. Like I used to rent a house that, the rear balcony was falling off. And why would I fix that when it's not my house and I just pay money to some guy in California? That's really the big. There's a big hurdle there to jump over. And that neighborhood in particular, if you go back to the 30s when they have all the maps, which that was a redlined area as well. And the way the federal government described it was all rentals. It's just a bunch of people who are renting out their houses. You have a ton of people coming in through the Great Migration too, and that was really seen as the opportunity for just leasing it out and walking away from the house. A lot of the white flight really informed what's happening right now, and so we have a really. It was a very intact neighborhood that through major decisions that have been made that cost millions and millions of dollars, we've damaged the neighborhood to a point that we look at it as though it's completely beyond repair. But you go back to the 1960s, they're saying the same stuff.
But realistically, the Porter Street Station's been looked at the same way.
Absolutely. But it's actually been that hasn't been passenger rail since 1950. So when you think about the actual use of it as a depot, if you worked there when it closed and you were, let's say, 20 when it closed in 1950, how old does that make you now? You
Yeah,
know,
and see,
so-
the short-sightedness and all of that. The railroads want it out of them because they cost them a lot of money.
Mhm.
But the reality is, if it had been fixed up and maintained and maybe split up as offices,
Mhm.
probably could have been a useful building all this time.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it really was too. I mean, until the arson, it was feasible. And the places that we look at within the depot that really didn't get too affected by the fire, there's no room that's not touched by it. I mean, that building
If
was
nothing else, just smoke.
yeah, exactly. The whole building was engulfed in flames, essentially. But the areas that, I mean, essentially most of the first floor is in very good shape where we've looked at it to the point where you could just wipe it down and shellac it at this point. There are certain areas of the building that look like they're not that far away. And it's when you remove all of the debris and you remove all of the stuff that fell or, no one's touched for 30 years. I feel like we look at these things, especially in any historic preservation project, of like, oh, that's old and bad. And it's like, well, it's not supposed to look like that. No one's done what you're supposed to do over the last 50 years. So if no one's maintaining something, how long can a car go without an oil change?
All right.
Until your engine seizes.
So I'm going to take a break. When I come back, we're going to ask how we pay for all this.
Mhm.
When we return,
That's the big question.
as we talk about the Porter Street Station and the neighborhood around. We've been with us this morning. He's got some other projects, and we'll talk about them in a little bit here. But I left you with the question before the break of how do we pay for all this?
Mhm.
And your initial comments about taking a $100,000 roof job and putting in about a $4,000 roof to solve the problem is pretty amazing in itself, but it still takes money. The preservation group's been around a long time. Where do you see the funds coming from?
Well, a lot of the money that we spent for the roof was raised within the last few years. Some of our fundraisers also were at farmers markets. We do booths at bazaars, any way we can make it. Right now we have a raffle going. We're friends with SRI, the Steam Railroading Institute in Owasso, and I used to actually car hosts for there. And we have 4 tickets to the North Pole Express, which are so hard to get. They sell out the first hour every year, and it's a $340 package, and we're raffling that the chance to win that.
And where do people get a hold of you for that?
Well, I'm at Oracle Brewing on Thursday nights, and then also I think Nathan's going to be selling them on Sundays.
And
But
where is Oracle Brewing?
it's on Michigan Avenue, right in the Pasongs area.
Okay, right.
Right. And then also I'm at Maple Grove on Friday nights. I'm at the Farmers Market on Friday mornings. And various, we're going to be at Valley Lutheran at their Fall Bazaar. We're going to be at the Lansing Area Model Train Show November 9th. It's at Michigan State's Pavilion. I mean, various places. And probably going to expand that pretty soon, too. Was at Shields Market, but that's over. Farmers Market, that's over.
Yeah.
So.
Long term, though, I mean, to fully restore that building is going to take a lot of money.
Absolutely, yeah.
Don't like grants.
It's going to be a little more
Are
than
there-
$4,000.
Well, yeah, you might say that. In-kind services are wonderful, but they're not enough to pay for the total job.
Yep.
Is there any grant money available for projects like this?
So actually, we're in a very unique time right now, really particularly here in Michigan, where we have a lot of grants available that are for these types of projects. Because the main thing about really anything in Michigan or throughout the Rust Belt, we're not even at square one with a lot of these buildings. We've lost so much time and a lot of neglect that just to bring them up to square one is its own job that needs money and grants. And so we're in a really unique kind of position. But the thing that I see as my role is that we have this hypothetical of that's probably going to cost $40 million. That's probably going to cost this. And I would argue that 90% of the demolitions that we've experienced in the last 20 years have been done on gut feeling and not actual facts. So if we were to actually go through and look at it, I mean, like they did with the feasibility study a couple of years ago, they went through and they were surprised to see that it's level all the way across, that it's in way better shape than we thought. So I don't really care to hear from people who have opinions about it. I like to hear from structural engineers about what needs to be done. But the issue with that tends to be they can't get to the things we need to see. So really what I'm trying to do is get to the area where we can get the engineers in, they can give proper assessments, and then we can get actual numbers as opposed to just kind of winging it.
I would have to believe this would fall under the category of urban renewal.
Well, in the 60s, that would have meant tearing the building down. Urban renewal is responsible for most of downtown Saginaw being gone. And that all happened in a span of about 10 years with some really big ideas of how to completely change things. But HUD, I believe they actually were one of the ones who provided a grant to us back in the 90s. And then through the state of Michigan, that was another huge piece of it too. So we've had major things that have happened, and I feel like what's driving me is the fact that the group before me, when I was a baby, when this group was still like really in the throes
the early
of
days,
I mean, it had just burned, and then did they get a roof put on it, and then the tower falls through the roof, and there's all of these major setbacks. They're constantly being threatened with, we're going to tear that building down. And this group constantly found solutions, and they constantly were able to really clear unclearable hurdles.
Well, there's been,
and it's amazing.
As I think back, I came here in '74. As I think back, there's been highs and lows. The group said, we're going to renew it, and everything's good, and then there's a fire, and then the tower, and then it looks like it's up again, and it's down again. Today, as we sit here, is probably more positive than I've heard in a long time about that station.
Yeah, and can you imagine, explaining that 30 years ago, that we're going to be in a prime position in 2025? It seems so outlandish, but...
and so if somebody wants to contribute, other than the raffle tickets, what do they do? Is there a website or Facebook?
Yes,
or
we do have a website. We are also on Facebook. The website is Potter Station. No, Potter Street. I'm sorry. It's potterstreet.com, right?
Actually, I believe it is actually potterstation.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yep.
Right.
We'll
and then
figure it out.
obviously we're on Facebook too.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break, come back. We'll come back to Potter Street, but I want to talk to Alex about another project he has going on, one of a few. We'll be back.
People don't like
Hi, we're back with you, and in studio with me, Alex Mixter and Denise Meyer, talking about the Potter Street Station. But Alex, you're involved in some other projects, and one of them has a nickname called the Cat House, mainly because the lady that lived there actually had a big cat.
Yeah, she had a leopard. He was I want to say 4-foot leopard.
Yeah, he was big.
Yeah, he was a big guy.
Size.
And his name was Chichu. Everybody seems to know about him because when you see a woman walking down the street with her pet leopard,
That's not usual.
You tend to not forget that. And she was very theatrical too. Rosemary DeJezero was her name, and she was very, very involved in places like Pit and Balcony, and that the theater didn't leave her life.
The Adamitis used to put on a Christmas program.
Yeah.
And it was sort of back in the day of maybe the late 1800s and that kind of period stuff. And she was part of it, and so was my wife and I. My late wife and I were part of it. So we did stuff with her. But never saw the cat.
Yeah, I believe the cat actually passed in the 90s. So it was, if you were around Saginaw.
That'd be about right.
Yeah, in like the 80s and 70s, I think was when, there are tons of people who work at City Hall who, just the other day I was talking to somebody who they worked there for years, and they remember her, they remember, when the house was basically condemnable because of the amount of cats in there. And there are people who remember, running to the windows because they knew what time she walked the cat. So they would all gather at the windows just to watch her walk by with this leopard. And a house with that kind of mythology. The funny thing is, it has a huge history that goes all the way into the lumber era, very early Saginaw history stuff, too.
So where are we with this house right now? Because who technically owns it?
So that would actually be my group. This actually started when I was doing a documentary, and that was called Re-Saginaw. And when I did Re-Saginaw, that kind of evolved into realizing that I didn't really want to just be an observer to this, and I got more involved with it.
Yeah.
And it was hard to just be interviewing people.
Yeah, you do have your dad's genes, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot of it really starts with the storytelling part. And then once you talk to enough people, you start seeing the bigger picture that's at play. And that's what led to the idea of how can we reuse this place? And then that kind of turned into it could be much more of a public space. There are plenty of uses that it could have, which was the initial idea of just it's usable in so many different ways other than a home that we can come up with something. And that's what we ended up doing. And so Re-Saginaw evolved into a community development corporation. And it just kind of has been, chasing this idea of what do we do with the things that people want to keep. That, when we have the discussion around demolition, there are certain buildings and certain structures and certain things. I mean, even the Beans sign was a big one of, what do we do? It still is, yeah. And it was just in the news the other day, actually. But what do we do with these things when, again, we don't have the money, it's going to be expensive, it's historic, so it's complicated. There's all these things, and we want to be the ones who actually work through all of those complications.
So where are you now with the restoration of the cat house?
We pretty much just need a ramp to get inside. We need to build...
Inside's done?
Yeah, the inside has been done actually for quite some time now. In 2019, we actually did a huge fundraiser where we raised around $90,000 to complete it. We had help up front through Ann Arbor Builders. They actually came in and they put in the $100,000 that was needed to just get it completely stabilized. And then we did an additional 90, and we received our money in it was early March 2020, and nothing weird happened from there. It was just a normal year through all of 2020.
Sure, no, yeah. COVID right, yeah. Nothing happened.
So we get our money, and we're immediately shut down trying to make a public space. Just immediately. And so we were able to work quietly. I used to joke that there's no social distancing quite like working in a vacant house.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of progress we were able to make in 2020 and then 21. And then we had to refinance because of how long the project was taking. We didn't anticipate COVID. We didn't anticipate a whole lot of things. So we have been slowly working towards that. But we were actually closed down by the city because we had an art show there and we needed a ramp in a parking lot. And a couple weeks ago, they changed the zoning, so the ramp is the only thing we need. The parking lot is no longer necessary. So we almost spent around $50,000 building a parking lot that was not going to be needed in a couple months. So we're glad we didn't do that. And we've just kind of been in a holding pattern because of everything happening on Washington Avenue right now.
We'll have to spend some time talking about that later. When it comes to fruition, you're ready to open it up to the public, so to speak.
Oh, I will be here with a megaphone. Yeah, this has been a project that I've been working on technically since about 2016, and I'm coming up on 10 years that I've been home, and it was one of the first things I noticed when I came home.
And the Potter Street Station, Denise, progress continues.
Yes, definitely. We have a couple of small fundraisers coming up quite soon. One is on November 7th at Oracle Brewing again. And it's going to be a celebration of the hard work that these guys did. Several people, just a handful of people did to get that roof done. And also for the help that we got from McAllister and also Eichenhout Lumber. They gave us most of the shingles that we needed for that project.
And we 100%
appreciate
of the shingles were donated.
That's that in-kind stuff you really need.
Exactly.
Definitely. The support of the community is what we need. Besides going out for grants, like brick and mortar grants or whatever, like Alex was mentioning. So we can't do this alone.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Well, listen, both of you, thanks for being with us today. We'll have to, do this again. Keep keep in touch with the updates and how it's doing.
I'm happy to give updates. This is actually a thrill to be able to come back and say, hey, it's got shingles now. So
I give good news at the places I go. What's up with Potter Street?
good.
Oh, good things.
All right, guys. Well, listen, we got to run for time here, but thanks a lot for being with us today. Denise, thank you.
Thank you.
Alex, good to see you.
Thank you, Art.
All right, and we'll be right back to close out right after these notes.
Are you looking for safe and
All right.